There are many Muslim, or at least so-called Muslims, who laugh so loudly at some of the writings of Hazrat Masih Maud about his being Ibn Maryam, in what sense he is Ibn Maryam. And this is one of the main topics of them, of the mullahs who come to Europe, and they tell that all the Muslims who have come from different parts of the world living here in Europe, they say, look, you don't understand, that man had no sense. He was a madman, like prophets are always called mad, of course. And the proof of his madness is that he claims that he became Maryam himself, and he went through all the pains which ladies suffer, and he also had menses, and he also conceived himself within like Maryam did, and then he was born out of his own uterus. Now when they say that, everybody laughs and says, good. Is he the prophet of God? What a madman he is, they say. Is that what you mean? You know? And also in the Arab world, they publish this, I have seen it printed in Arabic, some Arabic books addressed to the Arabs, that this is the type of man, they believe he is a subordinate prophet of God. They don't say subordinate, they say he's an independent prophet of God. Could you believe in such a man? Now, I refer to a verse of Surah Tahrim, the end of Surah Tahrim, in which first of all, Hazrat Masih has never claimed that physically he ever went through the stage of Maryam at all. Ilham said they want to speak of your menstrual period. That is, they deride you, they laugh at you. But none would say, see, any filthy blood in you, any discarded blood in you. The answer was given by Allah Himself. About Mary, what happened is a long writing of Masih, but in nutshell I am going to tell you what he wrote, what he claimed. He claimed that like Mary went through spiritual pain and suffering prior to the even conception of Jesus Christ, so I also suffered like Mary, but spiritually. And it was no part of my own personal ambition which played any role in the Khalq-e-Akhir which I received from God. You see, it is the Khalq-e-Akhir which is mentioned in the Holy Quran. Of all the holy people, they are ordinary people, they don't want anything for themselves. But Allah, when He chooses, He bestows His mercy upon them and raises them as office holders of Allah, as commissioned prophets of Allah. So this is the subject which he discusses. He says, on me there came and remained for a long time a Maryami state in which I suffered so much for the sake of Islam and for the sake of the state of the Muslims, etc. You know, all these things made him, mortify within himself. Then, with the grace of Allah, from me, Allah created that spiritual being that you call Isa. So in that sense, spiritually, I am also Ibn Maryam. That I went through all the suffering of Maryam, then was born in me that spiritual Isa, not the real one. Now this is the nutshell of his claim, and there is nothing stupid about it, nothing objectionable. It is a claim which has been made by many Sufis, similar claims, by many Sufis in Islam before, that you can't reach a higher status unless you suffer like Maryam. So I have got references to those which can be presented to you later on. But here, offhand, I can show you something from the Holy Quran. Why was it essential for Hazrat Mirza Sahib to say that he had gone through a state similar to Maryam. In Surah Tahrim, in the last verses, the Holy Quran says, وَضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِمْرَأَةَ فِرْعَوْنَ إِذْ قَالَتْ رَبِّ ابْنِ لِي عِندَكَ بَيْتًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ وَنَجِّنِي مِنْ فِرْعَوْنَ وَعَمَلِهِ وَنَجِّنِي مِنَ الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ وَمَرْيَمَ ابْنَةَ إِمْرَانَ التي أحسنت فرجها فنفخنا where? No. فيه where Maryam is physically mentioned and birth of old Jesus is mentioned, it is said فيها وَنَفَخْنَا فِيهَا مِنْ رُوحِنَا. Here it says وَمَرْيَمَ ابْنَةَ إِمْرَانَ التي ضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Those who believe, it is their example is quoted by Allah like two ladies. One is Imrata Pharaoh and the other is Imrata Imran allati asanat farjaha. Maryam, who was pure, who guarded her chastity. Now how can Mu'mineen be like two women? Have ever the mullahs considered themselves to be in a state like the wife of the Pharaoh? And when they inquire from us, all right, what happened, what changes took place inside, and what was the experience of your Mirza Sahib when he said he was like Maryam? So once I encountered such a mullah, I said, these two verses cover all the mu'mineen. None is left out. Either a woman has to be like Pharaoh's wife or that of Maryam, the mother of Jesus. So what would you prefer? You don't like Maryam, you're laughing at it, so you become wife of Pharaoh if you claim to be a woman. And tell me, what did Pharaoh do to you? Tell me all the experiences. I said, for God's sake, don't joke with the Quranic statements. They are profound truths. This means the minimum which is expected of a believer is that against all oppression and all coercion and all cruelty, he must guard his faith. Look at the wife of Pharaoh. Look at the dictatorial and despotic attitude of Pharaoh. Yet that being a lady, she guarded her faith and would not budge in. You are the followers of Muhammad Rasulullah. At least we expect this much. But we expect more. We want you to be as chaste as Mary is, Mary was. And yet she gave birth. So that means you must not seek higher spiritual offices out of your ambitions. Because Mary guarded her chastity and despite touch of man, she gave birth. So she said, if you do it, then Allah will do like what she did to Mary. But in this case, He will breathe His Spirit not into her, but into him, that is Mu'min, who does this. Because the reference is to a male. See? وَمَرْيَمَ ابْنَةَ إِمْرَانَ الَّتِي أَحْسَنَتْ فَرْجَهَا, which means in case of women, أَحْسَنَتْ فَرْجَهَا doesn't mean that anybody like mullahs, etc., have their farj in the sense that Arabic means. Asnat farjaha means they guard their spiritual chastity, the chastity, the purity of their heart, their desires, their ambitions. And then وَصَدَّقَتْ بِكَلِمَاتِ رَبِّهَا. The woman should be like this. وَكُتُبِهِ, and should do tasdeeq to kutubi. فَنَفَخْنَا فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِنَا. This is the word. نَفَخْنَا فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِنَا. Why ha there and he here? It is the mu'min who will be blessed by a ruh from Allah. That means he will be given a new status. Previously that was of Mary, then a spiritual man will be born out of that moment. See? Today I presented
during the Tarjuma Quran class, a reference from Sayyid bin Jubair, or was it Jubair bin Sayyid? Sayyid bin Jubair, yes, that's right. You know, Sayyid bin Jubair, a famous companion of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, highly respected in his very careful quotations and understandings. He believed that it is impossible for Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to have said anything which was not in the Quran. Like I have always been emphasizing myself. Whenever you read a hadith, always try to find its roots in the Quran. If you find them, then there is no doubt about it. Whether the narrators are weak or strong, it is Sahih or Ahad or whatever it is, if a hadith finds its roots in the Holy Quran, then it has to be absolutely dependable and reliable. Now, I have been thinking of where did Rasulullah find, from where did he find the prophecy about the advent of Ibn Maryam? He spoke so often, so powerfully, with such, with definite, with such certainty of the future descent of Ibn Maryam, that in Kitab al-Muslim, he refers to his coming as Prophet of Allah, Prophet of Allah, Prophet of Allah. But where was it mentioned in the Holy Quran? That was the question. When I read these verses, which he has just quoted, which I yesterday mentioned, then the last time I mentioned them, then it became quite clear that herein lies the prophecy for the coming of Ibn Maryam. A Jesus will be born out of a Mu'min Maryam. And that is what is mentioned here. It's bound to happen, inshallah, with the grace of Allah. Now, this morning I collected some material from Hazrat Masih Islam's observations on the same, and he spoke of this exactly the same way. I was so happy that my inference was supported and was correct. In Haqiqatul Wahi, Ruhani Khazain, volume 22, page 350, in the border, he writes, Brahine Ahmadiyya mein awwal Khuda ne mera naam Maryam rakha. When he had not yet made any claim to any office from Allah, and he wrote Brahine Ahmadiyya, the book of arguments in favor of Islam and against all the other religions who attacked Islam. That book is called Brahine Ahmadiyya. He said, there you can find, already I mentioned one ilham, which spoke to me as Ibn Maryam, Isa. That ilham, and फिर उसमें सिद्क मेरा नाम, first of all he says, God calls me Maryam, and then spoke to me that in Maryam, I, that is God, breathed the spirit of truth. And then he called me Isa, not before that. So he says, गोया मरियमी हालत से ईसा पैदा हो गया और इस तरह मैं खुदा के कलाम में इब्न मरियम कहलाया. That is to say that it is from the state of my being similar to Maryam, as has been mentioned in the Quran, that I was blessed with a new creation of Jesus, not otherwise. कुरान शरीफ में भी एक इशारा है और वो मेरे लिए बतौर पेशगोई के है. Even there is a reference to this in the Holy Quran, and that is as a prophecy for me. यानी अल्लाह ताला कुरान शरीफ में इस उम्मत के बाद अफराद को मरियम से तशबीह देता है. That the Holy Quran speaks of the similarities of Maryam with some of the believers of Ahmad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is in continuation of what he has already said. But I'll go bit by bit this time, not too much, because I have received a fax from your country, your city, Kababir. First of all, I must congratulate you that they are very happy that although they had some doubts about your ability to translate well, they said although Hilmi Sahib would always be remembered, of course, with love and everything, But they said, we are proud that this young boy from us has started doing so well right in the beginning. MashaAllah, with the passage of time he'll learn. But then they addressed me and said, for God's sake, speak in small portions. don't load him over much. So I stop here, you translate, and then I turn to the remaining. Haqiqatul Wahi is the book.
Yes.
Which is included in one larger compilation of his books, which is called Ruhani Khazain.
Yes.
The Spiritual Treasures is the name of that collection. Haqiqatul Wahi is a large book which is one of the collection. And on the pages of this larger collection, Ruhani Khazain, in 22nd volume, page 350, in the border, this is what he writes. Now, there are other references from great Muslim scholars, which I promised I would present, who have understood the subject exactly as this, and who have spoken of a believer to be a Maryam first, and giving a spiritual birth later on. Of these, in Futuhul Ghaib, Hazrat Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani has written this. In his article 48, he says, Hazrat Ali bin Abi Talib से मरवी है कि रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने फरमाया, ऐसे नफल पढ़ने वाले की मिसाल जिस पर हनूज फ़र्ज बाकी हैं, उस हामला औरत की सी है जिसकी मुद्दत हमल पूरी हो चुकी हो और निफास का वक्त करीब आ गया हो और वो अस्क़ात हमल कर दे, फिर वो ना हमल वाली ही रहेगी और ना औलाद वाली. And I'm talking of these terms that man becoming pregnant, these are terminologies which are referred to by Hazrat Ali to Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, according to Hazrat Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani. He says that Hazrat Ali Raziyallahu Ta'ala ibn Abi Talib reported that Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, a person who goes on performing optional prayers at the cost of the essential prayers, compulsory prayers. He does not say compulsory prayers, but goes on saying optional prayers. His example is like a woman who is pregnant, but sheds the fetus before it is developed. So she would be neither pregnant anymore nor with a child. So all the nawafil of such a man would be like a child wasted before it became mature. And this man will have nothing. Now these are terms used by Ahmad sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself regarding believers. And when Masih Islam uses the same terminology, they laugh and mock at him like ignorant people always do. Sheikh Abdul Qadir is not just an alim, he is believed to be one of the Akhtab. Yes, yes, Waliullah. Yeah. You know that?
Yes,
yes, yes.
Abdul Qadir Jilani.
Now, another great Sufi, Imam of Islam, is known as Hazrat Shahabuddin Sohrawardi. He is the founder of a sect of Sufis in Islam, and he is known to be a very pious man who was in communion with Allah. In his book, Awariful Mu'arif, he writes, Yasirul Murido Juz al-Shaykh Kama Annal Walada Juzul Walide Fil Waladati Tabiyate وتصير هذه الولادة آنفا ولادة معنوية كما ورد عن عيسى صلوات الله عليه لن يلج ملكوت السماء من لم يولد مرتين. See? These are the verdicts of those people who knew Allah, knew ways of Allah, and what spirit is, what spirituality is, what true life is. So they understood these things and used these terms. And Hazrat Isa alayhi salam said, nobody would enter the gates of heaven until he is born again. So that is why there is sect nowadays among the Christians, a sect, born again sect, you know.
Born again Christian.
That's born again Christian. It's based on this. So Muslims are true Muslims only when they're born again, as if their mother had given birth to them new. When they're cleansed of everything and bury their weaknesses in the past, then reborn. So waladat is a term which does not mean only physical birth, it means spiritual birth as well. And when Masih Maud uses these terms, they start mocking at him, joking and saying, oh, he became a woman, he gave birth to himself, you know, and they make cartoons out of this. What sort of people they are? Now, who has not heard of Hazrat Maulana Rum? Great man. She's a Turkish lady, she knows better than anybody else. Very highly respected, not only in Turkey, but everywhere in the world. His Masnavi Maulana Rum, is a famous book of, of deep spiritual truths covered in allegories. Not directly said, but in stories which appear to be different, but they are in fact carry deep spiritual truths. They are called allegories. Now he has written this verse: Hamchu Maryam Jan ze Asib Habib Hamila Shud, ya Hamile Shud, as Masih Dil Fareib. He says, like Mary, the soul is covered by the shadow of the beloved one, which is God. Like Mary, the soul is covered by the shadow of the beloved one, and it becomes pregnant and gives birth to a beautiful Messiah. See? Can they dare laugh at him in Turkey? And yet they publish such material in Turkey and people don't take notice of this. Because this is exactly what Hazrat Imam Maulana Rum had said before. So these are small-minded people, the enemies. No sane man should take them seriously. No, very similar terminology has used in so many that it will take a long time if I could go on. Fakhruddin Iraqi, Khalifa Majaz, Damad Hazrat Bahauddin Zakaria, he uses a full description of what happened to him before his spiritual birth. In his book Kulliyat Iraqi, page 195, published by Sheikh Muhammad Jalaluddin Kutab, Tajir Kutab, Kashmiri Bazaar. Now, I will tell you the basic points of this verse, this poem, in which he writes his own personal experiences. He said, my soul became pregnant with the grace of Allah, and within myself an embryo began to develop. The love of God took care of that embryo and began to feed it. And then it was delivered. When it was delivered, for 2 years I suckled it myself. Now, any God-fearing person would of course understand that. But those who have no relation with God, they go on abusing pious people like they do, unfortunately. It's enough as a specimen, right?